My fiance's mom demanded I use her wedding dress. I wore it and cut it to shreds mid-reception. I should have seen the red flags when Janet started planning my wedding before I even got engaged. The woman had spreadsheets ready, venue bookings made, and a 3-inch binder labeled Emma's Perfect Day sitting on her kitchen counter. My fiance David just shrugged and said his mom was excited, which should have been my first clue. When David proposed at Olive Garden last March, Janet literally called me before I even got home from dinner. She was crying happy tears and talking about how her wedding dress had been sitting in her closet for 30 years, just waiting for the right moment. "It's tradition," she sobbed into the phone. "4 generations of women in this family wore this dress. You have to carry it on." The dress arrived at my apartment 2 weeks later in this massive box that smelled like mothballs and disappointment. I pulled it out and immediately wanted to throw up. Picture the ugliest dress from 1985. Puffy sleeves, huge bow on the back, yellowed lace that looked like old teeth, and enough fabric to make a circus tent. The thing weighed about 15 pounds and made me look like a walking marshmallow. I tried talking to David about getting my own dress, but he got all weird about it. "Mom's already alterations scheduled and she paid for everything," he said, not even looking up from his PlayStation. "Just wear the dress, Emma. It's one day." One day? This was supposed to be my day. The alterations were a nightmare. Janet came to every single appointment, criticizing how I looked, suggesting I lose weight to fit the dress better, and telling the seamstress to make it even poofier. She kept talking about how beautiful she looked in it, how perfect her wedding was, how I needed to live up to the family legacy. I felt like a dress-up doll for someone else's fantasy. Wedding day arrives and I'm standing in the church basement, looking at myself in this horrible mirror, wearing this monstrosity that makes me feel like a stranger. My maid of honor, Jessica, takes one look at me and goes, "Girl, you look miserable." And she was right. I looked like I was going to my own funeral, not my wedding. The ceremony was fine, I guess. David looked happy, Janet was crying and taking approximately 9 million photos of her precious dress, and everyone kept complimenting how vintage and traditional I looked. But I felt completely disconnected from everything, like I was watching someone else get married. At the reception, things got worse. Janet kept introducing me to people as the new keeper of the family dress, and telling everyone the story of how many women had worn it. She literally had a slideshow ready showing all the previous brides, and I'm standing there feeling like just another mannequin in her collection. That's when my college roommate Becca came up to me during dinner. She pulled me aside and said, "This isn't you, Em. Where's the girl who wore combat boots to prom and told everyone to deal with it?" She handed me her purse and said, "I brought something just in case." Inside was a pair of fabric scissors she'd stolen from her crafting supplies. I looked across the room and saw Janet showing off more photos to my relatives, talking about how the dress would be preserved for David's future daughter, how it would continue the tradition for generations. She was planning my unborn child's wedding dress before I'd even cut my wedding cake. Something inside me just snapped. I grabbed those scissors, walked to the middle of the dance floor, and announced that I had something to say. Everyone stopped talking and stared at me. Janet looked so proud, probably thinking I was about to give some speech about family traditions. Instead, I said, "This dress has been worn by 4 women who all had to sacrifice their own vision for someone else's tradition. Well, I'm the 5th woman, and I'm done." I started cutting. First the sleeves, then the bow, then big chunks of the skirt. Fabric was flying everywhere. People were gasping, someone's kids started cheering, and Janet was screaming like I'd murdered her entire family tree. David just stood there with his mouth open, holding a piece of wedding cake. As I'm cutting away the last of the horrible lace, I felt amazing, like I could finally breathe. I looked at Janet and said, "The tradition ends here. My daughter will wear whatever dress makes her happy." Then I kicked off those stupid heels she'd made me wear and danced barefoot in the remains of that awful dress. Janet left the reception crying. David followed her out and didn't come back.